Hi, I'm Darlene. I'm 67 and this Mother's Day. My son gave me a $25 grocery card while flying his mother-in-law to Italy first class. I sat in a garage apartment he thought was good enough for me. No call, no flowers, just silence and a gift card. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing that for years, I'd been edited out of my own family story, one erased photo, one forgotten birthday, one cold brunch seat at a time. And when I finally spoke up, what I uncovered changed everything. How far would your children go to rewrite you out of their lives? The mailbox creaked when I opened it that morning, its rusty hinge groaning like it shared my weariness. Inside, a single envelope, no handwriting, no decoration, just my name, printed neatly in a sans serif font. I closed the box and walked slowly back to the converted garage I called home. The Arizona sun already warming the pavement beneath my feet. The envelope felt too light to matter. But I opened it anyway. Inside was a $25 grocery gift card and a stiff white card with black, computer-printed words, "Happy Mother's Day. Mom, we love you. Kendrick and Valora." No flowers, no phone call, just that. I stood in the middle of my small kitchen, the linoleum underfoot curling at the edges. I set the card on the counter next to the chipped ceramic bowl where I kept coupons and reminders. The silence in the room seemed to grow heavier around me, pushing in from all sides. I didn't move for a long time. Later that afternoon, I reached for my tablet. I needed distraction, something mindless. But the first thing I saw when I opened Instagram was Valora's face, glowing, radiant, surrounded by sunshine and Mediterranean water. Italy with my beautiful mom. The caption read, "Best Mother's Day ever." The next slide showed my son, Kendrick, raising a champagne flute at what looked like a private beach club. To the woman who raised a queen he'd written, I stared at the screen, then set the tablet down. I glanced around the room, concrete walls covered with faded tapestries, a fold-out table I'd found at a thrift store, the hot plate where I made oatmeal most mornings. I walked to the fridge and opened it. Half a jug of milk, 3 eggs, some celery, wilted. I closed the door and looked again at the card. They must have forgotten I could see. That evening, I stepped outside for a bit of fresh air. My neighbor Joni was trimming the bougainvillea along our shared fence. She looked up and waved, "Hey, Darlene, you heading out to see Kendrick and Valora this weekend?" I smiled quickly, too quickly. No, I'm not a fan of flying these days." "Oh, right," she said, brushing dirt off her gloves. "Well, must be nice having them in Italy. That woman knows how to plan a getaway." I nodded, pretending not to feel the ache forming behind my ribs. Joni meant no harm. She only knew what she saw online. I went back inside, locking the door with more force than necessary. That night, while washing the single plate I'd used for dinner, a memory surfaced. The last Mother's Day before Kendrick married Valora. He'd come by the apartment I used to rent, unannounced, holding a bouquet of sunflowers and a grocery bag of ingredients. "I want to cook for you," he'd said. We'd made pasta together in that tiny kitchen, Kendrick wearing an apron too small for him, laughing as he accidentally burned the garlic. He hugged me before leaving, whispering, "You'll always be my first queen." The kitchen I stood in now had no garlic, no laughter, just the hum of the fridge and the drip from the faucet I still hadn't gotten around to fixing. My phone buzzed a reminder to refill my blood pressure prescription. No other notifications, no calls, no check-ins. I opened the drawer next to the stove and pulled out the envelope. I slid the gift card back inside and sealed it, pressing the flap down slowly. I didn't tear it. I didn't spend it. I placed it under a small candle on the table, the kind I lit during storms or power outages. I raised a boy with a heart. I whispered, "Where did he go?" The candle flickered once, then held steady. I sat by the window, watching the shadows stretch across the yard. Night settled in slowly, like it didn't want to disturb anything. My knees ached from standing. My chest felt like someone had taken up residence in it without asking. Later, when I finally opened my tablet again, I saw I'd been tagged in a photo, a family picture. Kendrick, Valora, her parents, a few friends. I wasn't in it. The call came just after 9 in the morning. I was folding laundry old towels I'd had since Kendrick was a teenager and listening to the hum of the dryer when the phone vibrated on the countertop. "Hey, Mom," Kendrick said, his voice breezy. "We just got back from Italy. I know it's a bit late, but I wanted to make it up to you. How about lunch today?" I paused. Towel still in hand. "Lunch?" "Yeah. Just us. Thought it'd be good to catch up." Something about the way he said "make it up to you" tugged at me. I waited for the usual tag-along Valora, thought it'd be nice, but it didn't come. Maybe this time it was his idea. "Sure," I said. "That sounds nice." We met at a strip mall cafe that had seen better years. The booths were vinyl and cracked, and the scent of bleach hung faintly in the air. I sat facing the door, watching him walk in 5 minutes late, his phone still in his hand. He slid into the seat across from me. "Sorry." We had a last-minute call with our investor in Geneva. Wild time zones. He didn't ask what I'd been doing. A young waitress came by and smiled at me. "The shrimp scampi's already on its way for you." "Ma'am." I blinked. "Oh, I'm allergic to shellfish." Kendrick waved dismissively. "You used to love shrimp." "I haven't eaten it since 2003, I said quietly. "Hospital visit." He laughed, then looked at the waitress. "Can you swap it for a garden salad?" "Thanks." I nodded politely at the waitress. When she left, I folded my napkin neatly in my lap. "So," he said, "Italy was amazing." Valora's mom cried when we surprised her. "That woman loves Amalfi." I smiled with the edges of my mouth. "She's lucky." He checked his phone again. Valora had messaged something. He smiled, typed, then remembered I was there. "Sorry." The salad came, bland and overdressed. He ordered a Reuben. I listened as he recapped the week in Europe, the shopping, the meals, the spa visit for Valora's mom. He didn't ask a single question about me. Afterward, he hugged me loosely in the parking lot and said, "We should do this more often." I watched him drive off, then went home. On the kitchen table was a small envelope from the pharmacy, a bill for $28, unpaid, my blood pressure medication. I called them. The pharmacist said kindly, "Mrs. Shipman, your automatic refill was canceled back in March. Says here, family consolidation." Someone named Valora requested it. My hand trembled slightly as I thanked her and hung up. I opened Instagram again. Valora had posted a new photo, a lavish bouquet of orchids in a crystal vase. Captioned, "For the woman who made me who I am." The tag was for her mother. I whispered aloud, "It's not the food, it's the forgetting." That evening, I sat in the armchair near the window and tried to recall the last time Kendrick had asked me anything about myself, what flower I liked, what music I played when I cleaned. He used to ask every spring, "Mom, is it tulips or daffodils?" Now, he couldn't remember shrimp. I laid the pharmacy bill beside the unused gift card, which still sat unopened in its envelope. If they can forget something this small, I thought, what else have they erased? The bank still smelled like lemon cleaner and fresh printouts. It hadn't changed much in the years since I used to come here with Kendrick, back when he was a young man full of ideas and just enough ambition to worry me. I walked up to the counter, holding a small check from some mending I'd done for Joni's daughter. The teller, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a French braid, smiled as soon as she saw me. "Mrs. Shipman, I haven't seen you in years. You used to come in with your son, didn't you? I nodded, returning the smile. That was a while ago. She typed something, her fingers pausing briefly on the keys. That's strange. Your name in our system, it says Mrs. Old Doris. Did you want to update that? My smile faltered. Excuse me. She leaned forward and lowered her voice. Looks like it was manually updated when your son and his wife added joint access. Sometimes people request simplified labels for internal routing, but we can certainly fix it. I blinked at her. Yes, please fix it. She nodded quickly, tapping her keyboard. You know, your son is one of our most inspiring clients. A real self-made story. I didn't respond. As I stepped away from the counter, I noticed a display mounted on the far wall. A framed plaque read, Founding Client, Kendrick Peltier Enterprises. His photo beamed with confidence. Below it, the caption said, From nothing to nationwide, from nothing. The words echoed all the way home. Back in my kitchen, I placed the small check on the counter and walked to the hall closet. In a metal lockbox beneath old tax returns and warranty papers, I found what I was looking for: the original loan agreement from 15 years ago. The day I co-signed Kendrick's first business loan was one I never forgot. He'd come to me on a Wednesday evening, eyes wide and nervous, holding a printed business plan and hope that smelled like sweat. Mom, he'd said, they said I need collateral. I can't do this without you. I had just finished paying off the house after years of working nights at the library and weekends as a receptionist. I signed it over that night. He cried when I handed him the paperwork. I won't let you down. I traced the edge of my signature with my finger. You didn't come from nothing, I whispered. You came from me. I placed the document on the table, next to the unpaid pharmacy bill and the unopened gift card, a little shrine of erasure. I sat by the window, waiting for a phone call that didn't come. He hadn't reached out since the lunch, not even a text. I picked up the receiver of my landline, then set it back down without dialing. Outside. Joni's dog barked at a passing jogger. Evening settled in, wrapping the garage in a blanket of stillness. Then a knock at the door. Joni stood there, phone in hand. Hey, I didn't mean to intrude. I just thought you might want to see this, she said. She turned the screen toward me, a blog post, freshly published. Title: Self-Made Men and the Women Who Stand Aside. Valora's name was at the top. The blog loaded slowly, as if even the internet hesitated to show me what I already suspected. Valora's name appeared in elegant script at the top, followed by the title, Self-Made Men and the Women Who Stand Aside. I blinked, then blinked again. The opening paragraph described Kendrick's rise from humble beginnings to becoming a visionary entrepreneur, the woman credited with his transformation, Valora's mother. She taught him discipline. The post read, Her presence grounded him, shaped him. He is who he is today because of her unwavering love and wisdom. My name wasn't mentioned, not once. I read it again, slower, searching for any reference. Nothing. Halfway down, a bold header caught my eye. How I raised my husband to be the man he is. Valora wrote about supporting Kendrick through long nights, helping shape his values, believing in him before the first investor ever did. I stared at the screen, the glow of it catching the corners of my glasses, as though the words wanted to burn themselves into my memory. The comment section was glowing. Your mom is amazing. What a powerful legacy behind every great man is. A great mother-in-law. I closed the laptop with care, the sound it made louder than expected in the quiet of the room. My hands rested on the table, unmoving. The air around me felt still, like the moment before a storm cracks the sky. I stood and walked to the hallway, my steps soft on the rug I'd stitched from fabric scraps. Kendrick's old room was exactly how he'd left it after college, tidy, purposeful, almost museum-like. I opened the cedar chest at the foot of the bed and pulled out a photo box. Inside were decades of memories, birthdays, school plays, messy haircuts, toothless smiles. I thumbed through them slowly. In the early photos, I was there, always there, holding him, lifting him, behind the camera. But in the last few years, something had changed. In Kendrick's recent life at events, holidays, public milestones, I was gone. In one framed image from his office, a family shot, I'd been cropped out entirely. Just a sliver of my dress remained on the edge, a blur of forgotten fabric. I sat on the bed, the photo still in hand, and let the silence settle around me like dust. Then I made a call. Kendrick, Mom. Hey, everything okay? I just had a question, I said calmly. Do you remember who took your graduation photo? He paused. I think Valora's mom was there too. I think she snapped a few. I meant the one we framed, the one on your shelf. He was quiet. Oh, maybe you. I did. I hung up. No anger, no tears, just a quiet click. I walked back to the living room and reached into the drawer by the lamp. There, wrapped in tissue, was the original Polaroid I'd taken of Kendrick in his cap and gown. His smile back then was so wide, so certain. I looked at the photo and whispered, I took the first shot, Kendrick. And I think I'm ready to take one more. I first heard about the dinner from Joni's granddaughter, who was visiting for the weekend. I was pruning the lavender near the fence when she mentioned how cute the vineyard party looked on Instagram. What party, I asked, my voice light. She tilted her head. The one Kendrick and Valora threw last night? Some fancy restaurant in Paradise Valley? I smiled like it didn't matter, like it didn't sting. But my fingers tightened around the pruning shears. Later that afternoon, Joni came over with her phone. I wasn't sure if you saw this, she said gently. She tapped open the group thread called Family Dinner Plans, full of emojis and cheerful RSVPs. My name wasn't on the list. There were photos, too, everyone dressed up, wine glasses raised, Kendrick in a tailored navy blazer, Valora in cream lace. Joni looked up. They must have forgotten to add you. I nodded, swallowing a dry spot in my throat. Of course. I went inside and opened Valora's public Instagram. There she was, tagged at the vineyard, the caption glowing. Looking forward to celebrating with the whole family. She had tagged Kendrick, her parents, a cousin, even her esthetician. But not me. That night, scrolling aimlessly through stories, I stopped on a reel of Valora laughing in the candlelight. She wore a familiar ivory sweater, soft alpaca wool, with hand-sewn buttons. I had picked that yarn out myself 2 winters ago, stitched Kendrick's initials into the collar as a surprise. In the reel, she turned toward the camera. The collar peeked out. The initials were still there. The caption read, "My fave cozy piece." He gave it to me last winter. I paused the video, rewound, zoomed, still there. I sat back in my chair. No tears, no gasp, just the dull hum of truth sinking in. I remembered wrapping that sweater in tissue, adding a small note for warmth, from where you began. Apparently, where he began no longer mattered. The next morning, I pulled out a small cedar trunk I kept beside my sewing table. Inside were gifts I'd made or bought over the year, things I'd never gotten the chance to give. A framed photo of Kendrick and me from his kindergarten graduation, a hand-bound journal I'd stitched together, a monogrammed robe, one by one. I placed them carefully inside. I added a note. Not all gifts need to be received to still mean something. That afternoon, the phone rang. Kendrick's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, Mom," he said, his voice warm. "Just checking in." "You doing okay? I'm fine," I replied, keeping my tone steady. "Hope you all had a beautiful evening." He chuckled. "Yeah, it was fun. You should have seen Valora's mom trying the wine flight." "Hilarious." I hummed politely. "Sounds lovely." "Well, let's catch up soon." "Yeah, of course." He didn't hear the iron beneath my calm, didn't notice the silence stretching between his words. After the call, I walked to my closet, opened the bottom drawer, pulled out the invoice from the wool supplier I used for that sweater. I had kept it, tucked behind old receipts and thank you notes. I pinned it to the corkboard above my sewing table, next to the unopened gift card and the pharmacy bill. I wasn't collecting evidence. I was collecting value. My invisible threads. The envelope arrived with no return address, just my name typed in bold block letters. It had that sterile weight, too crisp, too deliberate. I peeled it open at the kitchen table and let the contents slide out. It was a brochure for an assisted living facility. A sticky note, stuck to the corner, read, "Just exploring options. Thought you'd appreciate some planning. Kendrick." I stared at it, unmoving. The pamphlet featured smiling seniors playing shuffleboard, a mountain view I didn't recognize, and a tagline, "Dignity, delivered daily." It wasn't even in Arizona. It was in Nevada. I flipped the packet over. Valora's name was CC'd on the email printout clipped inside. I hadn't asked for options. I hadn't asked to be managed. That afternoon, I walked to the mailbox to mail a package. It was something I had put together weeks ago, a tin of oatmeal cookies, lightly spiced like Kendrick used to love, and a small photo album I'd assembled from old prints. There was a picture of him with his first client, one of us painting his childhood room, and a scanned copy of the napkin he doodled his first business idea on. I sealed the box, addressed it to his house, and included a short note. "Thought you might enjoy these." 3 days later, the package came back, unopened, stamped in red, "Refused by recipient." I stared at my own handwriting. The label I had printed. The ink was still fresh. It felt like being slapped without a sound. I tried calling him, not to yell, just to ask. It rang, then voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I didn't call again. The next morning, I got dressed, pulled my hair into a neat twist, and walked 2 blocks to the bus stop downtown. I found the small legal services office tucked between a florist and a vape shop. Inside, the notary wore readers and red lipstick and didn't ask unnecessary questions. I laid out what I had: my health records, property tax statements, and bank summaries. She made certified copies and handed them to me in a folder with the weight of something final. Just in case. I told her. She nodded like she'd heard those words before. At home. I labeled a new file Guardianship Defense. I wasn't planning for disaster. I was protecting myself from design. Later that evening, I sat at my sewing table and wrote a note. I didn't date it, just folded it, sealed it, and slid it into the bottom drawer of my chest. If anything happens to me, I am of sound mind. I was never asked what I wanted. I wasn't scared. I was prepared. That night, I opened a blank document on my laptop, titled it to Kendrick. I stared at the screen, typed a few sentences, deleted them, then I began again. To whom it may concern, I declined the invitation to disappear. Maria spotted me first. I was reaching for a bundle of cilantro at the Sunday farmer's market when she touched my elbow lightly. "Mrs. Darlene," she said, her voice gentle. I turned and smiled. "Maria, it's been years." She looked hesitant, holding a small bag of oranges. "I don't work for them anymore. Haven't in a while." I nodded, unsure what to say. Then, after a pause, she lowered her voice. "I just wanted you to know." The Italy trip, Zupki, Valora told us not to mention it around you. My breath caught, but I kept my expression still. She said you were low maintenance, Maria continued, that you didn't need all that. I thanked her. Not with tears or trembling lips, just a steady look and a quiet, I appreciate your honesty. Maria gave a sad smile and walked away. That afternoon, I stopped by a small charity shop looking for buttons. I wandered through the furniture section, not expecting anything. Then I saw a narrow cabinet painted in pale blue with golden vines on the sides. The pattern was unmistakable. I had painted it myself. Years ago, I gave that cabinet to Kendrick and Valora as a housewarming gift. I remember writing the card, slipping it into the drawer. From Mom, with love. I opened the drawer. The card was still there. I bought the cabinet back without saying a word. The clerk offered to help carry it to the car. I said I preferred to lift it myself. Back in my garage, I placed it beside the small trunk of unreceived gifts and the returned care package. I taped a new label to the side discarded, but not forgotten. Joni came by that evening, drawn in by the sight of the cabinet on my porch. I haven't seen that piece in years, she said. Didn't you give that to... Yes, I said. She stood quietly for a moment, then said, Would you like me to keep copies of your papers at my place just in case? I looked at her, not surprised, not offended, just deeply, wordlessly grateful. Yes, I said. I think that would be wise. Later that night, I sat at my table with the low lamp on and wrote a second letter not to Kendrick, but to my lawyer. Please add to my file, no financial, medical, or legal decisions are to be made on my behalf without my explicit consent. I am capable. I am aware. I sealed it, filed it. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was responding. When I shut the drawer, my laptop pinged with a new email. Subject family brunch. This Sunday, RSVP required. I clicked decline, then typed back, I'm not available, but I will be watching. The envelope arrived in the mail without warning. Thick cardstock, gold trim, Kendrick's company logo embossed at the top. Inside was an invitation. You are cordially invited to a celebration of 15 years of entrepreneurial excellence. It came directly from Kendrick, not Valora. A separate RSVP card was tucked in, already marked Seat 42. A parking voucher for a downtown venue was included. It was all too formal, too polished. Still, I checked the box marked Will Attend. At the thrift boutique 3 blocks from my garage, I found a navy blue dress. It had pearl buttons and a hem just below the knee. Simple, respectful, forgettable if someone wanted it that way. I brought it home, pressed it carefully, and laid it across the bed. Then I reached for the manila envelope I'd prepared the week before. Inside were my copies of the trust documents, every page initialed, notarized, labeled. I tucked it into my clutch, zipped it shut. Let them tell me I imagined it. The venue was grand, the kind of place with real linen tablecloths and flower arrangements taller than toddlers. As I entered, the host glanced at my card and smiled politely. Seat 42 just along the left wall near the exit. Valora was already seated, front and center, flanked by her mother and a cousin I vaguely recognized from a wedding years ago. No one met my eyes directly. A few smiles, a nod or two. Nothing warm, nothing real. The clinking of cutlery dimmed as Kendrick stood behind a podium beneath a banner that read, Built from Scratch. He raised his glass. To those who believed in me when no one else did. Murmurs of approval. He looked toward Valora's mother. And to the woman who grounded me, taught me that legacy isn't what you inherit. It's what you leave behind. Applause. I didn't move. I just tightened my grip on the clutch in my lap. After the toast, While servers began clearing plates, Joni appeared at my side. She didn't speak, just handed me her phone. A video played. Valora's voice filled my ears. Of course I handled the trust. She slurred, giggling. You think I'd let his mother control that money? I made sure it all went through me. The timestamp showed it had been recorded at a wine night 3 weeks ago. I stood, smoothed my dress, and walked toward Kendrick. I handed him the manila envelope first, then Joni's phone. He took both without a word. His eyes moved from the papers to the screen, then back. The room grew quiet. Valora turned toward him, blinking too slowly. Kendrick didn't speak. I did. I came to be erased. I said clearly, but I leave here remembered. And then I turned and walked away. Outside. The air felt cooler than I remembered. I reached into my purse, pulled out a business card Joni had slipped into my coat earlier. Her lawyer friend. I looked at the card, flipped it once in my hand, then I smiled. The days that followed the brunch were quieter than usual. Not a reverent quiet, like after a birth or a wedding. No. This was the kind that pressed in on the lungs, a silence that made you question if you'd been cut off without even a sound. Kendrick didn't call. Valora didn't text. Joni brought over coffee on the third morning. She didn't ask questions, but her eyes did. I offered a small smile, grateful for her silence. It was the kindest thing anyone had given me in days. Later. I walked down to the mailboxes by the condos. I wasn't expecting anything. Bills. Maybe. But just below the recycling bin, something poked out a thick packet wedged between flattened pizza boxes and a crumpled gift bag. It was the printed event planner for the brunch. My name wasn't on it, but Valora and her mother were circled in pink highlighter, labeled clearly as hosts. Every flower, menu item, and seating placement was marked. Even the playlist. I flipped through it slowly, then folded it in half and slipped it under my arm like it belonged to me, which, in a way, it did. That afternoon, I picked up the community paper from the driveway. A feature on Kendrick's business celebration took up the bottom corner. Valora had been quoted, "My mother raised a man who became a legend. I just helped guide him." I folded the newspaper in half, then into quarters, then set it under a teacup on the counter. I needed air. I walked to Kendrick's old elementary school. The campus was smaller than I remembered, the paint brighter, the playground newer. But the tree out front, the one I used to lean against while waiting with peanut butter crackers and juice boxes, that was still there. A staff member smiled at me as I passed. "Are you Valora's mother?" she asked. I stopped. "No," I said gently. "I'm the one who taught him to tie his shoes." That evening, I sat in my garage apartment with a bowl of soup and watched the brunch video online. Someone had uploaded a professionally edited cut. It opened with Kendrick's toast, and the camera panned the crowd, lingering on Valora and her mother. Their champagne glasses caught the light. One comment below the video said, "Such a beautiful family. His mom must be so proud." I stared at the screen, then closed the tab. The knock came after sunset. I opened the door slowly, expecting Joni, maybe a package. It was Kendrick. He stood on my step, hands in his coat pockets, eyes uncertain. "Mom," he said, "I think I've made a mess bigger than I know how to fix." Kendrick stood in my living room, shifting his weight from foot to foot. His face was pale, the edges of his confidence crumbling. I let her handle everything. He said, "It was easier. She said it was better that way. Cleaner. Less stress for you." I didn't interrupt. I'd learned by now that silence was the most effective truth serum. He swallowed. "I thought I was easing your burden, but I see it now. I enabled a lie." I nodded once, then turned away to rinse my teacup. I gave no comfort. That was no longer my role. The next morning, I walked back into the lawyer's office with a folder tucked under my arm. The receptionist recognized me and smiled with that cautious professionalism lawyers' staff always seem to have. I laid out everything copies of the trust, Joni's recording, the RSVP cards, the returned package, the bank name tag. I want the fund frozen, I said. Pending review and clarification. The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, nodded. We'll draft it today. 2 days later, a new invitation arrived, this time from Kendrick, another family brunch. This one to make amends and clarify things publicly. I dressed simply, navy slacks, white blouse, a cardigan. At the venue, I was guided once again to the farthest table. This one was next to the restroom. I looked at the seat. It had my name in block letters. Darlene Shipman, family matriarch. I stared at it for a full 10 seconds, then turned and left before the first toast began. No drama, just distance. That evening, I left an envelope on Kendrick and Valora's doorstep. Inside was the original Mother's Day gift card, still untouched. With it, a handwritten note. You taught me exactly how much I'm worth to you. Thank you for the education. I didn't wait for a response. The next morning, Joni texted me a screenshot. Facebook was aflame with gossip. Someone had uploaded a side-by-side video of Valora's brunch toast versus the trust documents now public online. Comments poured in. She erased his mother. This woman manipulated her way into legacy. The fallout was fast. Kendrick released a statement 2 days later. Mistakes were made. My mother deserved better. I am working to correct what I allowed. Valora was absent from the next public event. I read Kendrick's words on a friend's phone at the library. I didn't flinch. I already knew. That night, I lit a lavender candle by the window, sat in the old rocker I'd rescued from storage, and stared out at the quiet. One more chapter, I whispered to myself. Then I'm done playing their roles. Across town, Valora watched the news in her living room, a tablet in her lap, eyes wide. The knock came mid-morning. I wasn't surprised this time. I'd brewed enough tea for 2. I didn't set out sugar. Kendrick stood on the porch, his hands bare, no bouquet, no boxes. Just him, smaller than he used to feel. I need to talk, he said. I stepped aside. He sat at the kitchen table, looking at the chipped mug I'd given him cocoa in every Christmas until Valora decided we needed matching ceramic sets. I didn't see it. He started. I knew Valora was strong-willed, but I thought she was organizing, helping. He didn't meet my eyes, but I gave her the keys to everything, every decision. I didn't think no. I interrupted gently. You didn't. He nodded, swallowed. That's on me. I didn't offer absolution. I let silence sit between us, like a judge waiting for a verdict neither of us could give. After he left, I went to the drawer beside my bed and pulled out the card, hand-folded from leftover wrapping paper, scrawled in my own writing, "Happy birthday. Darlene, I love you. I see you. I will not forget you again." I'd written it to myself 6 months ago, alone on my birthday, when neither child had called. I handed it to Kendrick. You know what hurts more than the lies I asked? The silence on the days that mattered. He held the card like it might burn. I want to fix it. He told me he'd rewrite the trust, cut Valora off from all finances, buy me a better home. You can't undo years, I said, by building me a new porch. We sat in the garden for a while after that. I watched the breeze stir the rosemary bush. Kendrick picked at the old bench I'd restored last spring. What do you want? Mom, he asked quietly. Not to be fixed, I replied. To be respected. He nodded, slowly. The first honest gesture in years. I love you, I said. But I won't rewrite history to make you comfortable. He blinked. Can you forgive me? Forgiveness, I said, isn't a gift I give to relieve your guilt. It's something I earn back for myself. When he left, I placed the birthday card on the mantel, lit a candle beside it. Happy birthday. Darlene, I whispered. You made it through? That night, my phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Valora, can we talk? It's not what you think. I blocked the number without reading more. The letter came certified, slid under my door in a thick envelope bearing the crest of a law office I didn't recognize. I didn't open it right away. I poured tea first, sat down, and waited for the moment to settle. Inside, formal language, stamped pages, and the one line that mattered. Valora Peltier is currently under investigation for potential financial misconduct regarding family trust management. No one had signed their name. But I knew who had sent it. Joni's lawyer friend? Quiet justice, like a soft gavel strike heard only by the ones who needed to. I didn't feel triumphant, just still. A few days passed. No word from Kendrick. No more knocks. No more notes. But the whispers came from other places, neighbors murmuring that he had moved out. Valora had gone quiet online. Sponsors dropped her name from upcoming events. A few of her digital followers started unfollowing in swarms. I said nothing. Until one morning, I received a package wrapped in purple tissue paper. The handwriting was wobbly and uneven, the return address written with the backwards N that always made me smile. Inside, a crayon drawing of me and my granddaughter stirring spaghetti sauce, the steam curling into hearts. Beneath it, a note written in marker. Grandma D, I want to be like you when I grow up. Brave. I pinned the drawing above my sewing table. That was legacy. That was truth. A week later, Valora issued a public apology. It made headlines for a few hours, trended in local groups. She called it a moment of misunderstanding, cited stress, miscommunication, and personal challenges. I didn't respond. Instead, I sent a letter to the local seniors newsletter titled "The Difference Between Being Useful and Being Used." It went modestly viral, shared in community forums, read aloud at 2 retirement luncheons, and quoted once in a podcast I didn't listen to. The day I turned 68, I baked a vanilla almond cake and set a place for myself at the table. 1 candle. 1 card signed by me. To me. To the woman who finally stopped asking to be seen, I whispered, raising a glass of sparkling cider, and started looking in the mirror. Later that night, I walked to my sewing corner and pulled out a new piece of fabric. This time, not a gift, not for anyone else. I stitched a quilt, titled it Inheritance. I used pieces of receipts, swatches from the clothes I'd sewn over the years, the gift tags I'd never delivered. A corner held a copy of the pharmacy bill, another the birthday card to myself. Each patch, a piece of me I'd been told didn't matter. Now, it made the warmest blanket I'd ever sewn. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, I sat in the garden with that quilt over my lap, and I smiled. Voiceover. If anyone had asked, I thought I had lost my place in the family. Turns out I just needed to stitch one for myself. Looking back, I've learned that silence is not always strength, and speaking up isn't always loud. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is stop asking for permission to matter. For years, I believed my love had to be quiet, patient, invisible. But love that's unseen becomes unpaid debt, and dignity delayed is dignity denied. If my story reminds you of something you've lived or someone you love, don't wait to be recognized. Take your place. Stitch it if you must. You belong. What about you? Have you ever felt erased in your own family? What did you do or wish you had done? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If this video touched your heart, Comment one or let me know where you're watching from. And if it didn't quite hit for you, tell me why. I'm here to listen. Your story matters too. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next story, because sometimes the next chapter begins with just one voice yours.